total coal usage of Jiangxi province. And after this line is finished, it can transport about 200 million tons of coal each year, which will sufficiently improve the transportation of coal and solve this insufficient supply situation in Jiangxi province and other central China provinces. Because right now the shortage for coal in Jiangxi province is around 30 million tons. So it does not only make sense economically, can also improve the well-being of the local residents. It passes through the mountainous areas. In these areas, a lot of places do not yet have access to railroads. They are the revolutionary old bases, which are generally underdeveloped. After the breaking through of the Monghua Railroad, it will largely boost the local economy, so it does not only serve the function of transporting coal. In the future, it probably would have the potential to serve as a passenger railway as well. And so as to facilitate the passenger transport in Hunan and Jiangxi provinces. The country is aiming at facilitating the transport in the central China area. Therefore, in the future, it has the potential to serve as a passenger line as well. In these revolutionary old bases, in the past, they do not have any access to railroad transport, which is one of the reasons that they are lagging behind. And right now, we are facilitating the building of railways in these areas. This morning, this Dawei Mountain tunnel breaks through for the first time. So what are the significances of the building of Dawei Tunnel? This tunnel starts at the Jiangxi town of Hunan province, and it's about 120 meters long and ends at the Jiangxi province and Paibu town. The total length, I stand corrected, the total length of the tunnel is 8,172 meters. So after it breaks through, it will be highly significant to this local transportation. In the past, the local area would have to rely on rail transport instead of railways, and will take half an hour to cover this length. Because this place is a mountainous area, it takes a lot of time to travel by roads. In the past, it would take about 30 minutes, but after this tunnel breaks through, it will only take about 3 minutes to cover the same distance. It's about 1/10 of the previous time. It will take much less time to cover this distance. At the same time, it would also bring access to railroads for the local residents. The building of this tunnel is also a daunting task. We can take a look at the construction site of the tunnel. It is surrounded by mountains. And it locates in the midst of the mountains. it must involve a lot of digging and excavation, has to take into consideration the local geological conditions. That must constitute a lot of difficulties for construction, right? That is true. The rock in the local Dawei Mountain is very hard. Therefore, it constitutes a lot of difficulties. You covered a very professional, technical topic. It is very hard in its essence, and it also constitutes a lot of safety risks. But it's very easy to break down. This kind of rock is called the hornstone, and it is very easy for it to break into pieces. Therefore, it is very risky when we are doing construction work. This kind of hornstone is the major geological feature of this mountain. The geological condition of this area is quite complex. So how can we ensure a smooth construction process? During the construction process, in order to ensure the safety, we have to make an early exploration of the geological conditions so as to serve as a guidance to our construction process. It is called the pre-warning for geological conditions. So it's more like a weather report. It's very similar to the weather report. It tells you whether it will be raining tomorrow, and also tell you the dangers ahead, so as to ensure the safety construction. So this is very advanced technologies. The weather report is done by the weather satellite. So what method do we use to detect the situation of the rocks? We do this through drilling, pre-drilling, about 200 meters to detect whether there is dangers or risk ahead. We use this pre-drilling technique to detect the situation ahead. Another is called TSP radar method, using ultrasound to detect the situation of about 30 to 50 meters ahead. So the image can be reflected on the screen. And you can consider it a CT scan. It's like a CT scan, using radar to decide whether there is risky rocks ahead. So these two techniques are mainly used to serve as an early warning detection to prejudge whether there is a risk for construction. So what if, after detection, we do find that there is a risk ahead? When there is a risk ahead, for example, if there is a water reservation ahead or rainwater reservation ahead, we can dig some drainage holes to serve as the surface. What about the other situation? Besides the bypass, sometimes there is a very high risk for collapsing of the mountains, and we also need to make prejudgment. Right now, this tunnel already breaks through. What are the biggest difficulties or challenges during the process of construction? The Dawei Mountain tunnel passes 9 bricks. And there is a very high gap for the altitude, for the height of the tunnel. And the smallest height only amounts to about 3.5 meters. There are some stone fallings, and towards which we take very timely measures to tackle these challenges. But generally, the construction has been smooth and safe. Now let's take a closer look at the construction site of the tunnel. If you look at the situation on the ground, it seems to be very damp. About 1 hour ago, there was a rainfall. The Jiangxi province is now undergoing a rainfall season, a raining season. The construction site takes place in the mountainous area, and there is also very high risk for natural disasters such as mud flows, especially during the rainfall season. So during rainy seasons, we would have to check the situation of the nearby rivers. There is also higher risk for landslide after rainfall, so we need to use water pumps to ensure a safer condition for construction. So it has a higher impact on the exterior of the tunnel and less impact on the interior of the tunnel, right? That's correct. But it still has impact on the transport of raw materials. We never had the chance to go into this tunnel during our live broadcast, so what's the situation inside? There are a lot of difficulties, as our engineer said, and all of these content will be covered by my colleague.
好的，志浩。那刚刚志浩已经是介绍了很多关于这个隧道的一个施工。
Thank you, Zhihao. We've heard an introduction about the construction of the tunnel. To understand it better, let's first take a look at this map of the tunnel.
就这个贯通点现在是在这个
Mr. Zhou, can you brief us on this construction situation of the tunnel? Where does this tunnel locate? We are at the number 2 incline shaft of the tunnel. And this construction takes place from here toward this way. This is not the main shaft, but the incline shaft. 310 meters into this incline shaft would be the main shaft. There are 4 incline shafts in this tunnel. There are 4 incline shafts plus an exit and entrance. So what are the purposes of building this incline shaft? We have very tight schedule, and time is not in our favor. Building these incline shafts can reduce the construction time by about half. Without this shaft, without incline shaft, it will take us about 3 to 5 years. But after building these 4 shafts, we can save half the time. If I'm understanding correctly, if we are building both from the entrance and exit of the tunnel, it will take longer. But if we build these 2 shafts, it will create 2 more work phases, so as reduce the time by half. And also, it will reduce the risks for construction. Now let's go through this incline shaft. I don't think that this tunnel is very big, isn't it? The dimension of this tunnel, of this section, is not very big. It's a single tunnel and single line shaft. As you said, the building of the incline shaft can reduce the construction time. So after this railway passes through, this will serve as an emergency tunnel. If there is an emergency at the main tunnel, you can use this as an emergency exit. The signal in the tunnel might not be very good, so we will not be going any further. We can see our staff and some vehicles passing through. They are all from our construction team. What are the main techniques that are used to build this tunnel? In cities, when you're building subways, we would be mainly using shield tunneling machine. But in mountainous area, we would use this explosion technologies. It is more cost benefit. But is there any disadvantages? Its advantages that it's more cost benefit and it has very low cost. But with explosives, it is more difficult to control, and it might constitute safety risks. It is very more difficult to control the scale of the explosion. The geological condition in this area is quite complex, and the hornstone, as we mentioned, is a main geological condition of the local area. This is a hornstone that I get at the roadside. It is quite smooth at the surface. It almost looks like a marble stone. Can you introduce to us what are the features and characteristics of this hornstone? It has a very strong, and it is very hard, but it's very easy to break. After it breaks, it has a lot of angles and will be easy to break into these small pieces. After the explosion, all of the pieces, stone pieces, would look like this, very small. After it falls down, it constitutes very high risk for the workers. Stones small as this would constitute higher risk for the workers. after explosion, these stones would fall at a large quantity. So we use controlled explosion to precisely control the amount of explosives. We also work with universities and professionals to study and decide the amount of explosives. We also conduct expert panels to determine a more safe amount for the explosion, so as to exercise better control for the explosion. It is about 8 kilometers long, and it locates at the mountainous area. So the excavation of the tunnel would be quite challenging. In some part, it would be farther from the top of the mountain. In some areas, it would be closer to the top of the mountain. The nearest would only be 3.5 meters, and the largest distance about 200 meters. During the construction, that must be very difficult for you, right? At the thinner areas, there will be a higher risk for collapsing. And it might explode through this mountain. So before the explosion, we have to decide very carefully the amount of explosives, so as to avoid this situation. Sometimes we even need to adjust some of the parameters. For example, we also need to reinforce the strength of the explosive site. And at this time, we would not be seeking speed. It will always be safety first. So what about in these areas with the distance of 200 meters? So 200 meters is the equivalent of about 80 floor height. It might also constitute risks. For example, there might be higher risk for cracking, and fractions. At this time, it would be using this initial liners, so as to serve as a better support before the construction. So how long does it take to build this tunnel? This tunnel begins at the construction begins at August of 2015, so it takes us less than 3 years to build this tunnel. And you've been working here all this time, right? Yes. And together with me are 600 to 700 workers with me. It must be very challenging for you to dig inch by inch in this tunnel for these past 3 years, right? That is right. If you look at this section of the tunnel, it is quite small in its dimension. And if you go deeper into the tunnel, the temperature would be very high. In winter, the temperature can be as high as 30 degrees Celsius. It has very high altitude compared to the local areas, compared to the surrounding areas. In winter, sometimes it even snows, but at the inside of the tunnel, the temperature can still be as high as 30 degrees. It must be very difficult and challenging for you to work inside. And the ventilation inside is not quite ideal. We also have a monitor to detect the gas, whether there is a hazardous gas inside the tunnel that might jeopardize the risk of the workers. If there is an emergency, we would extract all the workers inside. So as to ensure safety, we would evacuate the workers to ensure their safety. So what are the follow-up work after the breaking through of the tunnel? We would have to build some supporting devices, including the laying of the tunnels, laying of the railroads, and also some supporting facilities such as the electricity network and some contact network facilities. So how long does it take before this whole tunnel is finished? It will take about half a year, 6 months. And next year, in October, this whole tunnel will be put into use. Thank you very much, Mr. Zhou. Dear viewers, we are now broadcasting to you through CGTN channel and CCTV News portal and application. Just now we have introduced to you the Menghua Railroads and the Dawei Mountain Tunnel. The construction team has tackled many difficulties and addressed many challenges in order to finish this construction, so as to lay a solid foundation for the official usage of this tunnel. And that would be all for today's program. Thank you for being with us.